I got a question for you.
Sure.
We have an event coming up in Lantern Shores Nature Trails is having a day.
Yes.
Would we expect 15% of their profits to go back to?
No, not necessarily. The way that we've constructed the amendments to policy 58A is there's a very specific list of criteria that you need to meet to become municipally significant. So one of those is furthering the recommendations or the goals the municipality has identified in the recreation master plan and the community design plans. And each of those notes that trails are an important project for the municipality, and so they qualify. The donation piece only really applies to those events where they don't meet any of those other criteria, and somebody says, well, I should be municipally significant because I'm going to donate money. What we're saying is that as a municipality, we should set a limit of what we believe is a significant donation. So that, Brent coming in off the street says, I'm going to hold a stag and go, I want to have a public permit so I can make money, and I'm just going to donate money. What we're saying in the policy is that that type of event doesn't meet any of those other criteria in the policy except for the donation criteria. So we should set an amount so that it is significant. So that.
All right. So who chooses the charity now? That's my next question. Who decides on who takes the profit?
That would have to be the. Well, I guess there's two different ways to look at that. Right now, the way it's constructed, it doesn't speak to it in the policy. Council could decide that. In the case of the Optimist Club, they're getting the dollars right now, or they would get the dollars based on the way Kimball Hall's set up. For those other events, like say a ball tournament or something of that effect, we would ask them to outline that in their application to us.
So could the applicant then designate which charity they would like to see the money go to?
Yes.
That's fair, right?
Yeah.
Yes. That's fair. That
Yes,
makes us choose.
Yeah. No, that'd be one of the standard pieces of information they have to give to us to be public.
Okay. Yep. Deputy Mayor Day?
Yes, through you to Brent. Just wondering, what type of proof of payment would you have that they've actually followed through on the commitment, and what time frames?
Well, and see, that's the challenge in the process, because it's again, it's that cart and horse issue where they're telling us they're going to donate, so then we'll give them approval for the permit. Once they have approval for the permit, at that point it's good faith that they're going to follow through. I agree that possibly we should amend. That's a good amendment. Maybe we should amend the policy saying that proof of donation should be submitted to the municipality, and really the only consequence we can enforce is that the next time they come for a letter, and if we don't have that proof, they don't get a permit. They don't,
within a month's time.
yeah, that would be fine.
Councilor McGuire.
Yeah, for you to Brent, kind of a similar question that the deputy mayor had. I'm just concerned about how I go about collecting this. Like, can we do a minimum donation of say $300 up front, or 15%, whatever is less?
Again, that's why I when I wrote the report, I put 15% out there for discussion, because this really is something that council needs to decide. If you think that almost like a donation deposit needs to be submitted with the municipality, that's something we could amend in the agreement. It all depends on how restrictive we want to make our policy.
Councilor Underwood was next.
Seems to me it's getting really hard to have a good time in this province. Every time you turn around, there's another organization that's trying to come out with more rules and regulations to restrict basic things because we've been doing for the last 100, 150 years, which is having a party, having a good time. I'm not arguing that at all. Is there any way that we can make our significant events broad enough so that we can actually make them a little less restrictive than more? I see what you're talking about, the 15% for profits for an event. I guess that's right in the legislation that they want us to have some. 15% to me seems quite a bit, especially when you're talking about, well, a small organization. There may not be that much, right? It's just that I would rather make this less stringent than more. I mean, it just seems to be getting ridiculous.
Councilor Scott?
I have two questions.
And we're going beyond our 7.4 here. So.
No, the first one is, who's going to keep the books so that we know, like, you don't have staff to sit there and keep books on this.
Well,
so who would be the staff time? That's the first question. And the second one is, what happens when somebody holds a dance and 30 people show up and they paid $75 for their liquor license, they bought all the booze, which they can return unopened. They've spent significant money on advertising, they've spent significant money on ticket printing. I mean, you can start out with the cost of a dance at $300, $400, $500, $600 after your booze has been returned. And if you only made $300, you're already in the hole, right? So how can you make a 15% discount or a donation if you don't make any money?
I guess the argument is that you wouldn't have had any opportunity to make money unless you got that permit. So I'm just saying we have to
But they don't.
we have to have some sort of substance to the policy so that if
Maybe we
AGCO
should have a dollar value.
if AGCO does come and challenge, that we can show that it's significant because there is a donation. To your first question, my staff, the facilitator of recreation, already tracks all of this information for events. So she does collect the applications. She meets with the applicants to go through the alcohol policy. So really all this is asking for one more piece of documentation for her file. So she does administer this policy.
15% on the profit, there's no profit, there's
How do
no.
they determine profits? I mean, I could have an event, how do you know what I made?
Typically, we would ask for a financial statement of the event. Again, good faith on but again, I know it seems like a bit of an extra step, but based on the way that the province has set the liquor laws, stag and does can't profit from the sale of liquor at all. Really, the era of the stag and doe is gone without us making our policy slightly more flexible for them.
Goodness, we're all married.
Deputy Mayor Day.
Yeah, I just want to make a point that, actually, this is, as I understand it, this is broadening, it's not narrowing the options or making it more difficult, it's broadening it to allow for more people to qualify as a municipally significant event. And so, I don't want that to be a misunderstanding, and so to me, a 15% seems reasonable. I think we certainly do have to recoup something for that. It's a privilege I wouldn't otherwise have.
Councilman Craig.
Just so I can chirp in again here. Number one, I don't think we want to turn this into an administrative nightmare. It's all well and good to provide all the reports and everything else. It's not quite that convenient when you're doing it every Saturday night, all virtually year round. I mean, it's just a paper shuffle. It gets to be a little silly after a while. I would really suggest though that the 15% be a 15% kickback based on the alcohol sales, not on the profit. Okay. As it stands right now, the Octopus Club, we operate the bar, we take 10%. They get the license. We take 10% for providing the bartenders and picking up the alcohol, fronting the money and everything else. So it's gonna give us a 5% increase, which should have been done 2 years ago anyway. It is the qualification that for the significant event. That's the big question. And whether a stag do is gonna qualify or whether it doesn't. For the paper that's in front of council here tonight, it doesn't matter because the rules are the rules, okay? Either it does qualify or it doesn't qualify, and I think we can deal with that in a separate session where we actually come forth as a delegation to the council and put forth our.
We need a motion.
Okay.
We've had everybody's,
I move that we got the report as it is.
the recommendation.
15% for the alcohol.
Yeah.
Move the recommendation, second by Councilor Russell. Any further discussion? We've all spoken to it once already or twice.
To that motion, I'd like to make a friendly amendment that we change the,
Just Councilor Russell.
oh, sorry, second.
It's all right. As much as I agree with Councillor Underwood, and these are provincial regulations that we're coming to grips with and we're dealing with, correct? Okay. So the reality is that we should, there's only two changes I can see in there that we make the stag and doe, the only place you can have it is at Kimball Hall. That should say it right here. Is that how you wanted it?
Well, that's already in there because the municipality won't.
That was a joke.
No.
But the other thing is I think we should get rid of the 15%. I think they should, the 15%, which is what we've been discussing. And I'll tell you why, because unless we put it on just the alcohol sales as Ken does, we run our Lake Smith dinner every year. So we've done it 20 years. The last 7 years, I'll bet you only 3 of the years there was a profit at the bar. Because alcohol things have changed over the last 20 years. It's very hard to have a dance, a dinner, or anything and serve alcohol to people who aren't drinking when you have to go through all these loops that the provincial government puts you under,